Good afternoon, everybody, and a very warm welcome to our virtual event, How to Stand Out and Break into the Legal Profession with BARBRI. I'm just here for a super quick rundown before I pass over to the BARBRI team. So first of all, we have a presentation from BARBRI's Careers and Employability Manager, Steph Deer, on the skills aspiring solicitors need to break into the legal profession. After that, the Head of Employability and Engagement at BARBRI, Robert Dudley, will chair a panel discussion exploring the challenges students face on the path to qualification and how to overcome them. And then finally, there'll be a virtual networking session featuring the speakers, which will last from 5 to 5:30. So with that out of the way, I'll pass over to you, Steph, to get started.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Ryan. Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. As Ryan said, my name is Steph and I'm the Careers and Employability Manager here at BARBRI. And I'm going to be taking you through how to stand out in the legal market and some of the practical steps that you need to compete and succeed in the legal sector. What we're going to be covering today is we're going to be looking at understanding your career goals as a starting point. Then we'll move into thinking about research, where you can research, and we're also going to touch on your personal brand and then what networking is essentially, as well as LinkedIn, and how you need to create your narrative to be successful. So just as a starting point then, it's getting you to think a little bit more about your career alignment. And they call this the alignment model, and you'll all be at different stages of your learning and your career journeys. But it's really good to think about the approach to tackling the legal employment market and identifying and researching the right employer for you. And career alignment is very much about finding the match between what you want and what you offer and what a future firm or organisation wants and offers. It's unlikely you're ever going to find a perfect match or match a job 100%. Unfortunately, life's not that perfect, but an 80% and above match is a really positive starting place. So start thinking about what you want then. So what sort of work or practice areas interest you? Think about the lifestyle, the hours, the location, and then also think about what sort of impact you want to make. What long-term career goals do you have? And then think about the organization's values, where does that align? And then also think about what you offer. So this is kind of starting to think about your personal brand, which we're going to come on to in a few minutes, but think about your skills. What do you have? What do you need to develop? And then also think about what work experience have you gained, and non-law work experience does count too. So think of all of those lovely transferable skills that you can take to a law firm or another organisation in the future. And then also think about the proof. So employers often want results. They want to show you to show them your achievements and really strong examples on CVs and on application forms. And then also think a bit about your personal traits. We're very different. We all have different personal traits, but think about things like your resilience. Think about how curious you are, how reliable you are, and how you might exhibit that to a future employer. On the flip side, what you're thinking about is what they want. So in their job description or their job advert, they're going to be asking for specific skills, whether they're technical or human skills, also known as hard or soft skills. They're going to want things like commercial awareness from you. And also think about AI and technology, because that's a big talking point in the sector at the moment. And read the recruitment or career pages and speak to people in the sector as well. And we'll come on to networking a little bit. Then on that flip side, what do they offer? Is it matching with what you want? It's salary, the training, is it a good work culture? What support is there? What progression might there be? Really important. A lot of people say to me that they look for work-life balance now. So is it going to give you that? Is it going to give you flexible working or travel? Again, it all goes back to what you want out of your future job. And it does differ from person to person, but remember, we do spend an awful lot of time at work. So that's why career alignment is really, really important. Let's move on then and think about the importance of research now. So probably not the most exciting thing to do. I do appreciate that. And it can feel quite time consuming, and especially if you're studying and you're working or you're doing other things. A previous article I wrote for Legal Cheek, I talked about the fact that you have to have quite an MI5 mindset when approaching your research. So what I always say to students is find out as much as you can. Don't just do surface level, really go in depth. What can you find out about the sector or the organisation you're looking to move into? And researching is one of the things that really going to help set you apart, because the legal market is so incredibly competitive, and the candidates who normally stand out are the ones who have done their homework. So research will help you to understand the legal landscape, understand the career paths on offer, and again will help to match to your personal interests, your values and your strengths. And it will also help you to understand those specific employers, those firms, those organisations that are highlighting those skills and competencies required, and that's going to help you to turn a generic application into a targeted and compelling one. And that's really what you want to think about. Everything needs to be targeted and tailored to that future employer. Not only that, though, it's going to give you confidence at interviews so that you can ask the right questions, and that it's going to ensure that you're making informed decisions about your career and where you might want to start. And I always say, think of it this way: a few hours of solid research now could be that difference between landing your dream role or not. And it's a really, really valuable investment you can make. So I would never underestimate getting some done. Legal Cheek's a really good platform to have a look at, and there are lots of other platforms that you can use. There's All About Law, there's the Lawyer Portal, there's lawcareers.net. If you want to find out a little bit more about Crafty Counsel, that's more about in-house. You've got some like Lawyer Mag and the Law Society Gazette, as well as Little Law. They're really good places for commercial awareness. But these big platforms like Legal Cheek are a really good starting point to really delve a bit deeper into the legal sector. I will show you, or I have put it into the chat. BARBRI also has a free taster careers platform, and I'll put it back in the chat later. And that's another really good way of doing further research into the sector. And there's lots of free resources as well as SQE tips for you. And sorry, the slide there just gives you an overview of what they look like. Some of these really good ones like Legal Cheek and Little Law, as I said. The Law Society is another good one, the Lawyer. So have a really good look at these. For a bit more of generic advice, have a look at things like Glassdoor. Sometimes that gives you a little bit of an insight into thinking a little bit more about what questions might come up, salary. People will write reviews. What I would say is just bear in mind that that's one person's view. So, you know, you need to kind of weigh up and kind of get a broad understanding of the reviews on there and what they might be saying about individual organisations and firms. You've also got Roll on Friday, and you've got people like Legal 500 and Chambers Student. Again, are really, really good places to research. And just moving on then, starting to think a little bit about personal branding and what that is. And we all have a personal brand, and your personal brand is normally about how others perceive you, and essentially it's your reputation. It's not just about what you say you are, but also about how your actions, behaviours and presence consistently communicate your identity to others. And your personal brand, that very much influences how people describe you when you're not in the room. And it can also shape the opportunities that come your way. it's very much the process of defining and promoting your unique identity and value in relation to your chosen sector. So what it's going to mean is you identifying your strengths, your skills, your values, and presenting them in a way that resonates with your target audience. And that might be with employers, clients, or peers. And what a really strong personal brand highlights is it can make you distinctive, it can demonstrate credibility, and it can also build trust. And again, it's all about aligning your professional image across platforms such as LinkedIn, but also aligning it with your CV, with applications, and then when you go to networking events, so that people can clearly understand who you are, what you stand for, and also the value that you bring. So it's really, really important. And your personal brand is made up of all of the things you can see on this slide. So everything from your skills, which are your learned abilities and what you can do well. And that could be your hard skills or your technical or job specific skills. And then also your soft skills or your human skills, which are things like your communication and also maybe leadership or adaptability or problem solving. And some of those things you may have gained already, some you may need to develop further. You've also got qualities, and these are your innate traits or characteristics, and it's how you behave or how you approach situations. So that might be things like your integrity, your resilience. And we've mentioned this word resilience already a few times. Empathy, creativity. How much do you pay attention to detail as well? So use some real life examples, because it's all about demonstrating these qualities in action. And a law firm or an organization would want to see that. The other things are things like your achievements. These are your measurable successes, what you've accomplished. You've also got qualifications, so your formal credentials, whether you're gaining your GCSEs at the moment, you're at college, university, what's relevant to your current or desired career path, and what could set you apart. Also your knowledge, and this refers to your understanding of the sector. So again, it goes back to the research and those places where you can start looking and finding out about legal knowledge. But think about emerging trends, commercial awareness, mentioned AI and technology, which is a big talking point in the sector at the moment. You've also got a unique personality, and your personality shapes how others experience working with you. Maybe it's your communication style, your energy, your attitude. How do you collaborate with other people? How do you handle feedback or change? So all of those things can be kind of shown through maybe a LinkedIn profile. And then when you get to interview or networking events, it's all about showing your personal brand. And do you have any unique selling points? Some people do, they're distinctive features that will really make you stand out. And they might be a rare combination of skills and experience. It might be that you've got a unique perspective or a background, or a track record of innovation, or you've got a niche expertise or a different passion, So these things are all good to show a future employer. So start thinking about the things that you would want to pull out and what you would want to highlight to a future organisation or firm. And then your personal brand is there, and that's going to help you to network as well. So networking is very much about building and maintaining professional relationships with others in your industry, and you're already doing it. I can see the chat moving up, and lots of people are putting their LinkedIn profiles on there, which is absolutely great. This is a really good starting point. But one of the ways networking can really help is it's about maintaining and building professional relationships with others in the law sector, and it goes beyond simply just exchanging contact details. It needs to be about creating meaningful connections, and that can support mutual growth, success, and it will also take up a little bit of time, is what I always say, if you're doing it properly. So one of the things you can do through networking is get onto LinkedIn, and we'll come to that in a minute, but it's all about sharing knowledge, ideas or resources, so you can exchange insight on industry trends, best practices, innovative solutions. You can explore opportunities, because many roles and projects are never actually advertised publicly. There's the hidden job market as well. So through networking, that might get that access to the hidden job market, or to partnerships and collaborations that arise through personal recommendations. So that can be really, really important. It's also a great place to gain advice and guidance, whether you're learning on LinkedIn or you're actually going to events, but you can learn from experienced professionals who can often offer mentorship, career tips, constructive feedback, and these relationships will help provide fresh perspectives and also help you to navigate challenges along the way. It's also, as I said, about building visibility and credibility, because regular interaction with your network will really position you as a trusted and knowledgeable professional in the future. And it can also create really long-term relationships. Networking shouldn't be just transactional. It's about fostering a genuine connection that can evolve. And it may be that you make a connection and you don't actually do much with that person for maybe a year or so, and then they might pop up again and kind of help you move forward. So it's a really, really positive thing to do, is to think about your personal brand and think about how you're going to network, effectively. So just moving on to thinking about how you actually build effective networking skills, because I think a lot of people do say to me, I'd be quite nervous to go along to a law firm event or, an organisation's event. I'm not really sure what I would say. And I think the first thing is to know your purpose. What is it you're going for? Is it that you're seeking mentorship or a job opportunity or industry insights? Because you're going to need to tailor your approach depending on kind of your goal. And it might require different networks as well, because, there are different types of networks you can tap into. It's also going to help you to develop your legal elevator pitch. And an elevator pitch is a very short summary introducing yourself and maybe your legal interests, your current studies, and what you're looking to achieve. And what you need to do is practice that until it feels natural. And start attending legal events, join the Law Society, go along to firm events in person, online, any webinars like you're doing now, which is a great starting point. But these sorts of things are really going to help you to be more visible. And focus on quality over quantity. So by that, I mean, when you're building relationships, you're not just building contacts. What you want to do is nurture those contacts, So it might be that you need to stay in touch with people, you send updates, you congratulate achievements, you share relevant articles, or you offer help or insights when you can, because networking is all about being reciprocal. If you want to seek mentors, LinkedIn is a really good place to do it. And you can also join legal communities and groups. So I put the LinkedIn group that BARBRI runs called SQE Future Lawyers. And again, I'll put that in the chat later. But you can also participate in forums and things like Legal Cheek, and join anything at university that you can, whether that's a student law society, alumni groups, diversity networks, and then practice that professional communication. It's all about being clear, polite, confident in emails and conversations, and always follow up after meetings or introductions, because that will help you to become remembered. So let's talk about LinkedIn then. LinkedIn is a great platform and a really good starting point. And there are some really, really good stats on here just to show you how dominant LinkedIn is in the professional world. And I would say nowadays it's not optional, it is essential. 7 people are hired every minute and 72% of recruiters are using the platform. So if you're not on LinkedIn, you're actually invisible to a huge chunk of the market. And I actually got my job at BARBRI through an advert on LinkedIn. That was where I saw it. So it does work. You can get jobs through LinkedIn. One of the interesting things about this is the most followed company and the most followed person. I don't know if anyone's got any ideas, but the most followed company besides LinkedIn themselves is actually Amazon, then Google. But the most followed person is Bill Gates. There are also a lot of LinkedIn influencers online, and following and engaging with them is a really great way to stay informed and to build visibility. So I would do that because they do put a lot of really good insights on there. And there's just a QR code for our SQE Future Lawyers group if you would like to come and join that. So how can LinkedIn help you then? So LinkedIn can help you through your personal branding. Like I said, it's all about showcasing your skills, your experience and achievements. It can help you with your thought leadership. So showcase your expertise. You can actually publish articles and you can engage in discussions. It's going to help you to connect with colleagues in the future, industry peers and potential employers. And it's going to help you with job search because, like I said, lots of jobs get posted on there. There's lots of industry insights, so you can stay updated on news and trends. And then also there is LinkedIn Learning, so you can also improve your skills and knowledge by doing some of that learning and development on there. So final few slides then, just to take you through, and one is to start thinking about how you're going to craft your narrative. We've talked about research, we've talked about personal branding and networking, we've talked a little bit about LinkedIn. Now it's time to put it all together, and this is where you craft your narrative. And by that I mean it's the story that you're going to tell employers about who you are, why you're here, and what you bring to the table. And a strong narrative is what connects all those individual elements into something really compelling. And it can be interweaved into your LinkedIn profile, within an application form, on a CV, and within an interview. So one of the biggest questions that is asked nowadays is why law? And this is the most fundamental question you'll be asked. And what you've got to think about is what you're going to say to that. Because saying I've always wanted to be a lawyer is probably not a strong enough answer. So I would say, think about what specifically draws you into the law. What is it? Is it problem solving? Is it advocacy? Is it the intellectual challenge? Is it making a difference to somebody's life? You know, be authentic, but be specific. Your answer should be personal to you, not like something you've read off a careers website or you've stolen from somebody else. So it's all about being authentic. The other question that comes up a lot is why this firm or organization? And this is where your research is really going to pay off, because employers can immediately tell the difference between someone who's genuinely engaged with their firm and somebody who's sending out copy and paste applications. So really think about what you're going to reference. Reference things like specific practice areas, recent deals or cases, their values, training structure, even their pro bono work. Show them that you've done your homework. If you've attended an in-person event and you've met, I don't know, 2 trainees, you can say you've met them and that you had an interesting conversation and found out more. It's the things like that are going to kind of make you stand out a little bit more. And how can you add value to them? So flip the perspective, I can't speak today, the perspective. I'll put my teeth back in a minute. It's not just about what the firm can do for you, but it's what you can bring to them. So think about your skills, your experiences, your qualities that align with what they need. Maybe you've got language skills, maybe you've got tech knowledge or client facing experience or a unique background that's going to give you a different lens. Make that connection really explicit. And how can you add value to them? Also, how can you demonstrate evidence? Claims without evidence are just words. Every point you make in an application or within an interview needs to be backed up with a real example. Otherwise, it's just a list and it doesn't mean anything. So one of the things I like to think about using is a model called CARL. You may also have heard it as the STAR model as well. And that's a framework that we're going to cover on the next slide. But it's really, really a good way of backing up your examples and explaining to an employer, because they do want proof that you can deliver. They don't just want promises, and they're looking at what you've done in the past as to how you can add value. Just a couple of things before I talk through the CARL model. One is a big thing around commercial awareness. It's consistently one of the top things employers look for, and one of the areas where candidates do sometimes fall short. And that's commercial awareness is about understanding the business environment your clients operate in, knowing what's happening in the market and being able to connect legal issues to commercial impact. So one of the things I would say, and again, it's not the most fun thing I'm ever going to tell you today, but reading, a good quality newspaper like the Financial Times, going onto the BBC, following legal news and thinking about how current events affect businesses and the firms that advise them, so really start doing a deep dive. Also use places like Legal Cheek and like Little Law to find out more, read the Law Society Gazette, find out as much as you can. The other thing, and I've said it several times throughout, legal tech and AI, it's all to do with the fact that the legal profession is evolving rapidly, and firms really want to see that you're aware of technology and AI and how they're transforming legal practice. So they're not asking you to be a tech expert, but they're asking you to show an understanding of how tools like AI-assisted research, contract review, or legal tech platforms are changing the way that law is practiced, and that's going to help set you apart, because it's also going to demonstrate forward thinking, adaptability, innovation. And remember that AI tools are used in recruitment, because quite often large firms or mid-sized firms who get a lot of applications, they will use what we call an applicant tracking system. And if you're not aware of what one is, really good idea just to do some more research into that. And just finally, before I hand over to the panel, I just want to talk a little bit about how you can articulate these achievements. And we talked about the CARL model. The CARL model stands for the challenge or the context, what was happening, the action, what you did and the skills that you used, the result, what changed, what was the impact, and then learning, would you do anything different next time? So if you think about articulating your achievements successfully, whether that's on an application form or within an interview, or if you're writing them on a CV, then you need to be using this sort of model. If you're using STAR, that's situation, task, action, result, and quite a lot of people have heard of STAR. I do like the CARL model. It's the one that I use. And what if you're writing your CV, you're only really focusing on the action and result, not the full CARL model. The full CARL model would be on application forms normally, and within an interview if you're answering competency-based questions. And again, really, really good to look into competency-based questions and do a bit more research into them. But just one thing on this kind of that sometimes people just focus on the first three, but it's really good to reflect on your learning and would you do anything different next time, especially if it didn't quite go to plan. And when you get asked a competency-based question, it will normally be something like, tell me a time, describe a time, give me an example, and then it will give you the question. So tell me a time when you've worked as part of a team. And then what you need to do is use this model, and that will help to keep you on track. And again, doing some research into competency-based questions that come up from law firms is a really good starting point, as well as understanding an applicant tracking system. So lots of homework, lots of research. Not fun, I know, but it's well worth it in the end, because if it gets you that job you want, then you'll be on track. So hopefully this has given you a very brief overview of how to stand out in the legal market, or some of the things you might need to start doing. What I'm going to do now is hand you over to Rob and the rest of the panel for the next section. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Steph. I think we're all coming onto the stage now, so that's great. Steph, thank you. That was really, really practical, and hopefully has given everybody some clear steps that they can take when they're thinking about how best to stand out in the profession. We're now going to bring this to life a little bit more with a panel session to really focus on how you can stand out in that competitive legal market, whether you're applying for vacation schemes, training contracts, paralegal roles, you're just starting to navigate your SQE. Hopefully this will be giving you some helpful advice. As Ryan mentioned at the beginning, my name is Rob Dudley. I'm the head of employability at BARBRI, and we're delighted to have a panel of experts with us today who are representing all different areas of the profession. So, hello panel. Thank you so much for joining. I'm sure you'll be sharing some incredible perspectives and advice for everybody who's joined today. I just wondered if we could perhaps start off by us just asking your name. If you can tell us what your role is in the company or organization that you work for as a starting point, that would be a great start. So Anna, perhaps if I can just start with you.
Hi, so my name is Anna, and I am currently in my 4th seat as a trainee solicitor at Greenberg Trowbridge.
Brilliant. That's a US firm, isn't it, Anna?
Yes, US firm.
In London.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Sam, over to you.
Hi, my name's Sam Mears. I head up the private practice legal recruitment team at Taylor Root. Taylor Root are a long-standing legal recruitment agency. I think we're 36, 37 years old now, and I lead the private practice team for London.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sam. Great to have you on board. And finally, Adam.
Hello, everybody. My name is Adam Stocker. I'm a private practice recruiter. That means I help lawyers move from one law firm to another in London. I've been doing that for over 10 years now. And I work for an American business called Major Lindsay in Africa, which is the world's largest legal search firm. I'm in the London office, and so that's me and that's us. And that's my elevator pitch.
Thanks, Adam. Great to have you with us. Thank you. So if I can start off, perhaps Anna, if you don't mind if I start with you, just thinking back to when you were trying to approach the legal profession and in your journey towards qualification, what's one thing that you wish you'd focused on earlier that would have helped you stand out, do you think?
I think for me, when I was applying to various open days or vacation schemes or training contracts, I didn't utilize all the jobs and skills that I had had prior to gaining legal work experience. I worked in a college during my summers as a student, and I just think, looking back, the transferable skills that I had from speaking to prospective students, almost as if you would speak to a client now as a trainee, is something that I really underlooked and undervalued. And I would say that a piece of advice that I would give to everybody listening is to look at every piece of experience that you have gained so far and to see if that can somehow tie into the skill of this, like that a solicitor may have. And that could really be anything from communication skills to working with, like, say, the general public, But yeah, that's something that I definitely missed out on. And I think if I was going to go back in time, I would put in some more lines on my CV and include the smaller open days I went to and the other like little bit jobs that I had along the way, because that's something I definitely missed and I wish I left in.
No, I think that's really helpful advice, Anna, and it's something that Steph obviously raised in her presentation as well, just around those transferable skills, that as long as you're aligning them to what the organisation you're applying to is looking for, and they can mirror that, albeit you're coming from a different sector, it's not legal experience, it doesn't matter. It's really, really important to be able to demonstrate any experience that you've had. So Anna, thank you. That's really helpful. Just out of interest, is there anything that you wasted time on, I suppose, that you felt didn't really matter in those applications?
I think I spent too long stressing on my grades rather than consider firms look at you as a whole person, and they are interested in, say, the societies that you've joined or the volunteering that you've done, and not just focusing. Obviously, it is important to make sure you pass your exams and you do well for yourself as well. But I think I spent a little bit too long focusing on that rather than thinking, that there's more to offer.
Absolutely. It's you as a rounded person, as opposed to just your academic achievements, is absolutely vital. Thank you, Anna. Sam and Adam, you're obviously both working within the legal recruitment world, and you must see a huge volume of applications. But when you think about candidates who really genuinely stand out, I just wondered what you felt were the few things that they particularly do well. Sam, I wonder if I could come to you first.
Yeah, no problem at all. So I guess just for a bit of context, prior to leading the associate team here, I also looked after the paralegal team when I first joined. So looking at people at an entry level, we used to do quite a lot of work with future trainee solicitors, and it's very difficult. You haven't got any experience in your CV whatsoever. How do you stand out? And it's a bit of a strange one to say, but identity, I think you can really see quite clearly when people have been, it's multiple internships, it's multiple VAC schemes. You can see people are headed in that direction. That there are a number of CVs that have kind of landed on my desk previously where you can see somebody is destined for a training contract, or they're going to work for a law firm. And I guess it's that consistency piece, that narrative throughout your CV, which is, this is what I've done previously, this is where I'm headed, here's the supporting evidence of that, and here's what I want to do. So ultimately, when you're looking at your CV and looking at any applications, you should be able to look at it and it should give you a headline. Some people have a headline on the CV. So it might be aspiring solicitor, it might be aspiring trainee solicitor, or whatever that is. But knowing who you are and what you're applying for and being really clear about that, I think is really important. And this is where I'd kind of say scattergun applications just for anything with any sort of legal relevance isn't a good idea, because it dilutes that identity piece.
That's really helpful, Sam. And when you talk about that headline solicitor, I really like that idea. Is that something that you'd also apply into LinkedIn, for example?
Exactly. I mean, personal branding is really important. So, I said about consistency and identity, having a up-to-date LinkedIn page that you've populated with all the relevant information, it answers a lot of questions about somebody. So, and a lot of employers are going straight from the CV to clicking on a LinkedIn link. I actually encourage people to keep that in their CV sometimes, so that people can jump between the two. So
that's great. Thanks, Sam. Adam, does that sort of echo with your experience as well?
It does. I mean, for sort of context, so I don't recruit for paralegals, and where I get involved is everything from an NQ. So I might start talking to trainees and say they're coming up to their fourth seat, all the way up to say 6 PQE, which is where most jobs are. And so, that's the sort of PQE range I'm dealing with. I think, and I don't envy how competitive it is when you're entering the legal profession. I would say that you do need a minimum 2-1 or better law school, distinction, or just a good pass grade, and that just allows you to play the game. You're now competing for law firms and with everyone else. Then I'd say, and it's been covered already, but know your why. Why do I want to be a lawyer? Why am I applying to this firm? Why do I want to do this practice area? And also, I mean, and this is sometimes difficult, I think, when you're very junior, being able to articulate it. But there are some practical, tangible things that the legal profession offers. It gives you a structured career path. You can work with, if you're working with in big law, sophisticated clients. If you're working with individuals, you can help individuals. You're working with amazing, intelligent colleagues. You, frankly, you'll earn good money compared to whatever type of sort of law firm you're at. You're going to earn very good money. It's a great career, and I think don't forget that aspect of it as well. Maybe don't start off your pitch to a law firm with that, but it's there as well. And also in terms of sort of commercial awareness, I mean, that's definitely important. I mean, we've spoken a lot about AI, and that we've spoken about it in terms of law firms using AI, or you as a lawyer using AI. But if you think about AI as a sector, as a thing that's out there, AI needs data centers. What is data? If you're going to build a data center, what do you need? You need planning lawyers. You need real estate lawyers. You need infrastructure finance lawyers. You're probably going to deal with private equity lawyers who are dealing with that. You're going to need, you might need a sort of restructuring lawyers to deal with it. So you can, take something which is in the financial press, and what does a lawyer do for that?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you demonstrate those things, I think that's helpful.
That's really helpful, actually. And I wonder, we just had a question actually come in. I was just looking on the chat, and somebody just asking about what distinguishes a strong early stage qualifying work experience candidate from an average one. So I think maybe that comes back to what you were both saying, Sam and Adam. I just wondered, I think personal branding obviously feeds into this pretty strongly. And is there something, aside from what you just mentioned, kind of headline solicitor, demonstrating your motivation to become a solicitor, is there anything else, Adam, that you see as being particularly successful when it comes to personal branding, maybe on a CV or a LinkedIn profile?
So I would say, and anyone feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, I think law firms sort of like, particularly at the junior end, they like a sort of a simple career trajectory. As in, you go from school, you go to A levels, you go to university, you go to law school, you pick up your vacation schemes along the way. Some people do have maybe a career before, which they can use, but I think there's a sort of clear path and structure. And again, I would just say, the grades are important, and I don't think you just need to accumulate.
I suppose it's how you articulate it, is it?
Yeah, I think know why you get up in the morning. And I've heard litigators or trainees who want to qualify into litigation who have said to me, "I just love the theatre of the court," which I think is amazing. Right? It's great. Others like dealing with large financial services institutions. I heard a trainee who wanted to be a restructuring lawyer tell me that they enjoyed puzzles and making things and how they were put together. And I thought it was a great way of putting it. It's just whatever. Yeah, I think
demonstrating your motivation, isn't it, and your passion.
Yeah, and those things will change throughout your career and out through your life.
Yeah.
But I think if you just learn how to articulate that,
that's great advice.
Across.
That's great advice. Thank you. Sam, if I can just come back to you just for a second. Obviously, Steph talked about networking, and it can feel quite awkward, depending on the situation you're in. But it can feel quite awkward, I think, sometimes for early stage career people who are taking their SQE or entering the legal profession. But from your side, what actually works when someone's actually trying to build relationships in the sector?
Knowing the value you're seeking, so not just kind of reiterate on the why point, but just putting myself into some of the transactional lawyers that we deal with, some of the partners that we're working with as well. It's people want to know that they're quite transactional by nature, so it's very much what do you need from me and why. And when you flip that back around in terms of if you're networking with someone, what are you looking for? Are you looking for an introduction? Are you looking for knowledge? Are you looking for time? Are you looking for opportunity? So in terms of if someone says, I need you to go network, and all you know how to do is say, hey, how are you? This is who I am. The first question coming back from any type of, I argue corporate professional on the most part is going to be, what do you need from me? How can I help? And it is a how can I help rather than what do you need? Please go away. A lot of the people I speak to have got that time to give, but ultimately on the networking thing, all you can do to make it less awkward for you is know the value that you're seeking, because that will help you find the right questions to ask, and then in turn the right people to ask them of, right? Which makes it less awkward and more familiar, because the people that you will seek out will have the answer that you're looking for and be quite keen to provide you the answer if they have that knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great advice. Thank you. Anna, if I can come back to you, just when we think about, obviously you're in your 4th seat now, congratulations, not long to go until you fully qualify. When you think about your route and how you wanted to kind of break into the profession, let's have a think about that route, and what do you feel helped you stand out when you were applying to Greenberg?
So I actually studied theology and religious studies at the University of Leeds for my undergrad degree. Yes, converted to law. I would say anyone who is doing the non-law degree to definitely utilise that, that you are different from not studying law. But at the same time, I would say from beyond that, when I was going into my training contract interviews, I really focused on what made me stand out was more the university societies that I had volunteered with and helped to run. And again, through that, the leadership opportunities that I had taken, and just all of the small things that I had gone about day to day. So, for example, yes, volunteering again at uni, that was a big one. And I did it again on the GDL and then the LPC, which I completed afterwards. I would definitely say utilize the small things about your personality, and say if you have volunteered or completed pro bono with university, make sure that's on your CV, because the skills that you would have gained through those experiences, you'll be able to talk about in an interview. So, for example, I was on the Leeds Women in Leadership Society, which was the biggest society at my university, and I was able to state that I had gained XYZ skills from that opportunity, and I could really speak about that within my interviews. So I would say something that is really important is, regardless of your background or your interests or even whatever type of law that you're wanting to go into, if you bring a piece of yourself to the interview, I think that's really important. And just to, no matter what you think may not be particularly relevant, I still honestly believe that there are ways in which you can utilize those skills and bring that up in an interview. And I think that is just the key to just remembering that they want to hear about you as a whole person. And yes, it's not all about grades and university and things, but it does really help if you show that you've done more and you've gone out of your way to show an interest in law. But yeah, just to use the other things that you've also done outside of your degree to your advantage.
No, I think that's really valuable advice, and I think demonstrating your uniqueness and what you're bringing to the firm is absolutely vital. I wonder if we could perhaps explore that a little bit further and think about your role now as a trainee, and the reality, I suppose, of your kind of day to day. What sort of skills actually do you feel really matter most that perhaps weren't talked about quite so much whilst you're at university or during your LPC?
So I would say attention to detail is probably the one that you will hear the most as a trainee. Attention to detail is so key. A typical trainee task is proofreading, and it's really important that late at night, when your supervisor has said to you, hey, Anna, can you quickly look over this agreement for me, that you can take the time to proofread. And I definitely think in today's society, where we're constantly looking at screens, that sometimes we forget that we can print something off and read it with our own eyes. in like a fresh way. So yeah, definitely attention to detail. I think enthusiasm is also something that isn't highlighted as much at university. I think you can really tell between the trainees who are really keen to learn and to get their teeth stuck into a certain area of law. So again, I'd say that is something that's great. So bring your enthusiasm to work. It makes the environment it makes it better for everyone else. And then I would say finally, honesty. And I don't mean honesty in the way that everyone's probably initially thinking. I think it's great to be honest with yourself that throughout this whole process of training, you won't know everything. And it's really important to be able to say to supervisors and associates that you're working with that actually, I need you to take a minute to explain this to me. Can I ask another question? Is it okay if you phrase that in another way? And I think that's a really good trait to have, to be able to reflect on yourself and to know your limits, in the sense that if you don't understand something, to be able to take a step back and to ask. Because I think many times at university, I just sat in a seminar and just thought, oh, I'll look that up later and that's okay. When actually, when you're in a deal that's going 100 miles an hour and they want you to be able to keep up, it's really important to be able to put your hand up and just say, actually, please, can you say that again? I don't quite get that.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. Skills, I think.
That's a great learning experience, I suppose, as well, isn't it, in that regard? Just before I go back to Sam and Adam, just very quickly, I know there's a question that's just a question that's just come in. Somebody asking how important it is to know what type of law you want to practice when you're applying for training contracts. Did you know, Anna, at the beginning when you were applying for TCs?
I had absolutely no idea. I had work experience in immigration law. I had work experience in standard litigation. I had work experience I worked in the family courts, and now I'm looking to become an M&A NQ in September. So it's completely different, and I would say that all work experience is great work experience. It's the skills that you develop. But I had no idea, and even a couple months ago, I didn't really know what I wanted to do in September fully. So I think it's totally fine to not know exactly what you want to do, and you don't need to focus on one area of law before looking for training contracts. I would say go for everything and find out what you want.
Great advice, thank you. Sam, if I can just very quickly come back to you. When we think about the application process, and again, many people who are on this today are thinking, okay, what's the best way for me to break in? I might have a little bit of experience, I have absolutely nothing at all, but I just wondered, from an application perspective, is there any sort of application myths that students really need to sort of stop believing, I suppose?
Yeah, so one of my favourite ones is that your CV does not have to be one page. Okay,
Sam, sorry, I'm slightly struggling to hear you, sorry.
Can you hear me now?
It might be your microphone,
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, perfect, thanks.
Marvellous. Yeah, so one of my favourites is that your CV does not have to be one page long. Essentially trying to cram that amount of detail into one page. So I'm going to bore you a little bit with the story behind it. So I was told, I don't know if this is true or not, that advice was given out in the 80s and early 90s when CVs were sent via fax machines, and getting a reel of 8 pages of floppy paper was something that just annoyed people, essentially. But now we're in an age where actually, if you've got a couple, 2 or 3 pages worth of quality information and stuff that you've been involved in, certainly as you get more experience, we talk about AI and all the rest of it, but actually just doing Control F on a CV and looking for a keyword search, it's something that I quite regularly, used it earlier in my career, which was, does this person work with this particular client? Do they work in this particular sector? I'm a lazy reader. I'm quite happy to admit that, and AI has saved me a ton of time. But what we're working with on our side are hiring managers, on the most part, who want to skim read people. That the whole they say about kind of grabbing attention within 30 seconds or kind of 10 seconds of reading a CV. I can't remember exactly what it is, but there needs to be something that stands out. That's true. Okay, you want to grab someone's attention. That's the identity point I raised earlier. But actually, if someone kind of goes, okay, well, what else have they worked on? If they do a keyword search and there's something that you've omitted from your CV for the sake of keeping it to one page, it could be something that costs you an interview. So just include what you've got. As Anna said, all work experience is good work experience. Do bulk it out with what you've got as long as it's relevant.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sam. Adam, if we take the applications piece forward a little bit further, when you're receiving applications, how important do you feel authenticity is versus kind of saying the right thing, I suppose, in applications? And it's kind of a bit of a balancing act.
Good question. I mean, authenticity can come across on a CV. I would say that the best thing you can do on a CV is and this leads into the authenticity piece of it. Don't put anything on a CV that you can't talk about in detail, whether that's a deal that you've worked on. So if you're a trainee or a lawyer, or let's say you're a paralegal and you've worked on a matter, a deal, piece of litigation, whatever, you put it on your CV and you can't talk about it from a macro level, as in what was going on, who were we advising, who was the client, and if you can't say who the client was, what was the client? If you can't say GlaxoSmithKline, say multinational pharmaceutical business. Be able to talk about it from macro level and a micro level, as in what were you doing specifically within it, and then any technical questions that might follow through it.
Yeah.
If you can't do that, I'd say don't put it on the CV, or if you are going to put it on the CV, make sure you can talk about it. Yeah. And that probably also applies to even things you might think as you become more senior are trivial, like hobbies. If you put down that one of your hobbies is reading, for example, and maybe it is, but if it's not, and you just put it down there because you think you should put it down there, if you can't answer the question, what was the last book that you read and what was it about? I love going to restaurants. Well, what was the last restaurant you went to? I love cooking. What was the last meal you cooked? All those things. You put it on a CV, make sure you can talk about it. And saying, it was such a long time ago, I don't remember, not an excuse. The margins between the level that you're all operating at between success and failure are tiny.
Yeah,
like it's really, someone's going to win, someone's going to lose, and it's tiny. So you just need to make sure that you can back it all up and keep it relevant. I was talking to a trainee not too long ago, sent me their CV, and their experience prior to their training contract was they'd spend more time on that than their training contract. And I think as you go along in your career, you just want to keep what's most recent relevant. You can still mention what you did before, but keep it relevant to the position that you're applying to.
The position you're going for. Yeah, that's great advice. Thank you, Adam. I'm very conscious of time. I just think I know there's been lots and lots of questions coming in. We can, of course, address some of those in the networking afterwards. But just to sort of close us out, I wondered if I could just ask each of you, just to provide a little piece of advice, I suppose, to the students on this webinar, who clearly are obviously very different stages in their journeys. But when we think about reflecting back on networking, personal branding, how best to stand out, is there anything that you would pinpoint, perhaps if I can come to you, Anna, as a piece of advice to help people take things forward?
I think I would say yes to as many opportunities as you can, if that's networking, or you get the opportunity to apply to an open day, or I think just, throw yourself into everything that you can. And I know it's scary from being in, say, undergrad or even before that, but just put yourself in those rooms, because if you don't put yourself in the rooms, then you're not going to be able to have the conversations and grasp those opportunities. So I think my best advice would be just always apply and stay true to who you are, and you'll stand out.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Anna. Adam, anything you'd like to provide by way of advice?
So the profession you're going into is very competitive, and you want your long-term career goals in mind, and it will come around a lot quicker than you think. I would say, particularly if you're at A-levels, university, or law school, concentrate on the basics. Get the best A-levels you can, get the best degree you can, get the best law school mark that you can, get yourself a firm, and when you're doing your training contract seats, ultimately it's your life, your career, do whatever makes you happy, but also maybe think about what's in demand as well, because some practice areas are more in demand than others, and there'll be more jobs for you to apply to than others. But do what makes you happy, but take it stage by stage.
To be targeted, I suppose, in a way.
Yeah,
that's great. Thank you. And finally, Sam, any last piece of advice you'd like to give?
Yeah, two small bits really. The first one is be resilient. For those of you that are trying to get in it, as Adam's mentioned, it's a difficult profession to break into. There are, it has got a high bar of entry for a good reason. But don't be dejected. You need to kind of keep going, be resilient with it. For those of you that kind of want it enough and do the right things, put yourself in the right places, it is possible. But the second piece of advice that comes with that is, the people that end up going to work for the Magic Circle, the US law firms, are a minority. There are hundreds of law firms in and around central London at various parts of the market. And I would encourage you to, whilst, by all means, aim for the stars, make those applications and try and put yourself in a position to, be well placed at the top end of the market if that's what you want to do. There are hundreds of strong West End boutique mid-market, even some of the international firms you get in there are very good places to start and or kind of finish your career, right? It's a ladder that you can climb and come back down, but don't just kind of go, I only want to work for these 5 firms, because you're limiting your options.
Absolutely. And it's not a linear process anymore. No. So I think that's really great advice. Thank you. I'm conscious that we are at time. Thank you, panelists, for joining. Really, really appreciate all of your insights and your practical tips. I think hopefully for the attendees, that's been helpful to you. I know that we're now going to be moving over to networking, so I'll pass it back to Ryan to take us over there. Thanks, everybody. Oh, we can't hear you, Ryan.
Shall we try again now? Can you hear me now?
Oh, there you go. Yeah, we can hear you.
Fantastic. Yeah, just to reiterate exactly what Rob said, thanks everyone on the panel for joining, and thank you, Rob, for hosting. It was fantastic. There was some really good advice there about how best to compete in the legal market and stand out. We do now have a networking session, so if you press the Expo button on the sidebar, you can go join a networking session. The speakers will be there, as well as another team member from BPP. Thanks once again for joining, everybody. A huge thank you to our panelists today, and have a great evening, everyone.